Since the status rework in 2020, Viral has been regarded as a very strong element to use, while Corrosive has taken a bit of a backseat. Still, I come across a lot of people who don't really understand the full relationship between these two elements, especially when applied to actual missions and gameplay. Does Corrosive still have a place in 2021, or has Viral killed Corrosive? I'm the Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. This is a bit of a chewy, math-heavy topic to address, but fret not if you just want to know how to play Magical Space Ninjas better. I'll go over the math and reduce it down to simpler estimates and rules of thumb to help you actually use the findings here. But for those of you who enjoy a little bit more to chew on when theory crafting, I've not cut it out. In either case, if you'd like to discuss anything in this video more, I recommend heading on over to twitch.tv/theengineer and we can cover more live. By far, the easiest and most interesting place to start with is Viral Procs versus Corrosive Procs. Viral Procs cause any target to take more damage on health, starting at 100% bonus damage with one proc, and an extra 25% additive damage bonus for each extra proc up to a max of 325% damage bonus. Corrosive, on the other hand, reduces target armor, the first proc by 26% and each additional proc by a further 6%, to a max of 80% total armor reduction. Both of these are solely there to increase the damage you can deal to the target. As the effectiveness of Corrosive is tied to how much armor the target actually has, we can compare the actual damage bonus of Viral versus the actual damage bonus of Corrosive against different amounts of armor. So when comparing equal amounts of Viral procs versus equal amounts of Corrosive procs, this is best done on a graph. First things first, the baseline, where we have 0 procs of Viral and 0 procs of Corrosive. Given neither of them are in effect, the damage bonus from Viral is exactly equal to the damage bonus from Corrosive, that is, there's no bonus, so we have a flat line at 1. Now let's add in just a single proc. We see at the far left end of the graph, where there's no armor to reduce, Viral is giving us twice the bonus of Corrosive because Viral is doubling the damage while Corrosive is doing nothing. This is going to apply for between half and 2/3 of all enemies you face, so this is a win for Viral of course. Going toward the right of the graph, the line curves downwards but then tapers off. This shows that as the armor of the target increases, Corrosive claws back some ground from Viral, but we always remain above 1. Viral is always giving us a greater benefit than Corrosive damage bonus if you only have one proc in effect. In fact, the absolute lowest this goes is 1.48. Meaning a single Viral proc will always allow you to deal at least 48% more damage than a single Corrosive proc. This is, by the way, called an asymptotic curve, meaning it trends towards but never quite reaches a value. We only reach exactly 48% at infinite armor, which doesn't happen. Repeating this with more procs, we see that Viral is obviously ever better against a lack of armor. However, once we get into higher levels of armor, the graph changes. With more procs of Corrosive gets closer and closer to beating Viral. With 10 procs of Corrosive versus 10 procs of Viral, we actually see the tables turn, but only for 10 procs. This crossover point is at about 6,500 armor, which is around that of a level 100 Bombard. This means that proc for proc, the only time Corrosive is better than Viral in your damage buff is when you deal the maximum 10 Corrosive procs and the target is at least as tough as level 100 Bombard. Any less armor or any fewer procs and Viral is giving a greater damage bonus. As you can also see, the bonus from Corrosive at 10 procs is not a very large difference. So on a status proc basis alone, Viral is basically always better unless you can solidly guarantee 10 Corrosive procs at all times on all targets, with them all being at minimum Steel Path level armoured. But if that wasn't enough, one of, if not the most common way of dealing with enemies once they get to this level of armour is to actually use slash procs to bypass the armour. Corrosive only helps us get through armour, so bypassing armour entirely makes Corrosive procs useless to you. Viral still increases the damage dealt to health, sending us right back to the left side of the graph where Viral is an absolute winner. Alright, so Viral procs are king. We're not just saying that now, you've got a graph to point at. But Corrosive is more than a status proc. It's a whole element in its own right in Warframe. The fact that this video is not about to end might clue you in there's more to this story. All types of health, shield and armour have various resistances and vulnerabilities to damage. Corrosive has a 75% bonus against ferrite armour and fossilised health, but a 50% penalty against proto shields. Viral, on the other hand, has a 75% bonus against cloned flesh, 50% bonus against normal flesh, and a penalty against machinery and infested health. Do be aware that infested health doesn't mean all infested units, just specifically the ones which use the health type just called infested. Don't blame me, it was DE who made the names confusing. For bonuses against shield and health types, they are as simple as they look. Viral damage deals 75% more damage to clone flesh. Clone flesh is used by basically every single living Grineer unit, which is itself basically every Grineer unit you'll fight in most missions, so no fuss, just a 75% bonus. Likewise, Corrosive always deals 75% more damage against the hardier infested units, which use fossilised health, and 50% less damage against the hardier corpus units, which use proto shields, at least whilst their shields are active. For bonuses against armour, it's not so simple. With armour modifiers, first the total armour of the target is reduced for the attack by the bonus amount, or increased if the armour is resistant, and then the damage is also increased by the bonus. In other words, if you hit an NPC with corrosive damage when they have ferrite armour, the armour is first reduced by 75% just for the corrosive damage part of your attack, and then the corrosive damage is increased by 75% on top. This means against a target with just 100 ferrite armour, Corrosive deals 115% more damage. It reaches 200% more at approximately 375 ferrite armour, 300% more at 900 ferrite armour, 400% more at 1950 ferrite armour, and 500% more at approximately 5100 ferrite armour. At this point, Corrosive is dealing 6 times the damage of an unmodified damage type versus targets with ferrite armour. However, this is with diminishing returns. It is impossible to face a target with enough armour for 600% more damage, as the curve is asymptotic to 600% bonus. You get to 550% at about 11,500 ferrite armour, and 599% at about 630,000 ferrite armour. To put some perspective on that, it takes a level 217 corrupted heavy gunner to get 11,500 ferrite armour, or the same unit would need to be level 46,135 to have 630,000 ferrite armour. Given the level cap in this game is 9,999, it's safe to say you'll never encounter an enemy with such mind-bogglingly high armour. From this, we can basically say that in Steel Path missions, or at least against ferrite armoured enemies of that calibre, you can expect to have around about a 6 times damage multiplier to your Corrosive, versus only a 1.75 times multiplier to viral damage output. Approximately half the EHP in a Grineer mission will be from ferrite armour, with the majority of the not ferrite coming from elite lancers who have alloy armour. Averaging this out then, Corrosive will have overall twice the damage bonus versus viral in a high level Grineer mission from health type modifiers. In lower tier missions however, the damage types are instead close to equal. Going back to the viral procs versus corrosive procs, if you're up on a Steel Path mission, we've already shown that viral procs will give you an advantage over corrosive procs for a damage bonus. However, with corrosive damage averaging out twice that of the damage of viral procs giving as much as a 60% bonus at that tier isn't going to cut it. If you have the choice of just corrosive or just viral, corrosive ends up on top versus Grineer, as at worst it's still dealing 25% more damage on average, and can scale to over 100% more average damage depending on the procs. The downside to this being that a pure corrosive damage has more variance in it. Elite Lancer, Nox, Napalm and Bombard units for example are all far stronger against pure corrosive than against pure viral. Now sadly for corrosive, this result is a smokescreen. No one in their right mind should be facing enemies sporting thousands of armour by just using straight up corrosive or viral damage. The enemies at that stage are too beefy for that to be efficient. Instead, the meta of the day is slash proc damage, which as we already covered is enhanced by viral procs, but not by corrosive procs. If you hit an enemy with 5000 ferrite armor with 100 corrosive damage, and no status procs, the enemy armor will resist just over 80% of that, and then the corrosive gets a 75% damage buff, giving you a total hit of 33.9 damage. If instead that 100 damage is slash and proc slash, the initial slash hit will get reduced to a little over 5 damage, but the resulting slash proc would deal 35 damage every second. Given that you can easily deal slash and viral together to further ramp this up, it's a clear win for slash viral over corrosive. So let's look at this faction by faction. Against the Corpus, corrosive procs do almost nothing. The few enemies they have with armor do not outweigh the sheer number of them which laugh in the face of corrosive, yet take extra damage from both viral and from viral procs. Worse still, corrosive damage is resisted by proto shields, protecting some of the hardier Corpus units and bosses. There is really no reason to use corrosive against the Corpus. Against the Grineer, corrosive damage can provide a damage buff against half their armoured units directly, and corrosive procs can provide a damage buff against all of their units through armour reduction. However, in lower tiers it turns out that the viral damage buff is equally effective. Viral procs also completely outdo corrosive procs until we get to the highest tiers of play, that's Steel Path and above. By the time you're fighting Steel Path, using direct damage is not as effective as using slash procs. Viral buff slash, corrosive does not, it's an easy choice. The very point where corrosive starts to pull ahead, it gets smacked right back down. Against the Infested, the picture gets a little muddier. With no armour, Infested ignore corrosive procs, but are susceptible to viral procs, making viral a clear overall winner. This is even in spite of the damage reduction on the Infested health type, as the majority of those units die to a stiff breeze. However, there are a total of 3 instances where this is not the case. First, the Cambion Drift. Many enemies on the Cambion Drift, mostly the tougher Deimos specific units, have immunity to viral procs. If you cannot land viral procs, viral loses the majority of its power. Add on to that these enemies are also armoured, and not only has viral lost its power, but corrosive has gained power. Plus, those strong, dangerous Cambion Drift units have fossilised health type, which means they are weak to corrosive damage. This doesn't affect their armour, so it's not the same damage scaling as with ferrite armoured units, but it's still a bonus. Overall, corrosive damage is the type of choice on the Cambion Drift, followed by slash if you're facing Steel Path versions. The second case is Infested Disruption missions, which is almost entirely just Ur on Uranus. All 4 Demolisher types in that mission are immune to the viral status, with the Charger and Juggernaut also immune to viral damage, and the others 50% resistant. For that reason, you cannot use viral for those targets. Instead, they are weak to slash, heat and gas, with the Juggernaut Demolisher also weak to corrosive. The third and final Infested exception is the normal Juggernaut unit. It is both ferrite armoured and resistant to viral, making it a case for wanting to use corrosive instead. As Juggernauts appear in normal Infested missions, it may be helpful to pack a second weapon with corrosive alongside whatever you're using for the rest of the mission. Now, normally I don't talk much about sentient threats for these guides, but having the right damage type when facing sentients is a very big deal. This is exacerbated by their immunity to status effects. For solo sentient bosses, that's the 3 Eidolons on the plains and the Ropolo list, they use alloy armour, and so you want to be using radiation damage to fight them. For every other sentient though, including those found in sentient anomalies in Railjack, the sentients in Orphix missions, and assorted sentients throughout normal missions, they use ferrite armour, meaning corrosive is absolutely the way to go. So here's your little cheat sheet to help you pick between viral and corrosive. Are you fighting on the Cambion Drift? Corrosive is better. Are you doing an Infested Disruption mission? Corrosive is better. Heat corrosive will be a good one. Are you preparing to fight a Juggernaut? Corrosive is better. Are you preparing to fight a non-boss sentient unit? Corrosive is better. Are you fighting Steel Path tier Grineer without using slash procs and without reducing the enemy armour any other way? then Corrosive is better, but really you should be using Slash or Armor Strips. And if none of the above apply, which is most cases, then Viral is better than Corrosive. Viral has made Corrosive a terribly less desirable damage type in the game, relegated to some very manufactured niche circumstances. However, Corrosive is not dead. When the Sentients make their next move, Corrosive may just save us all. If you have enjoyed this video, or learned something new, pop a like on the video, and to catch more as I upload it, subscribe as well. And as always, plan ahead, build right, and fight well, Tenno.